The Pecron E1500LFP has been a power station I've been wanting to try out for a long time, and they finally sent me one. Let's talk about it. What up, it's I from askivesolar, where I like to give you comprehensive overviews of products. There is so much to talk about with this device. I feel like it is packed full of features and little things that are just dope about it. First of all, it's a 1500 watt hour capacity battery, a little bit more, but do those extra 46 watt hours really matter? I don't think they do. It has a 2200 watt inverter and it's LFP, hence the name LFP. But let's talk about the accessories. First of all, they come in this nice little accessories box. What it looks like on the inside has a little whatever on the top for holding the instruction booklet. Power cable, nice. Comes with a 12 volt cable socket to 5521. Which I like. I'm a fan of that. We'll talk about more about that later. And you have your solar input cable. It's a little short. I feel like it's the typical one that they ship with all of their devices that have this like proprietary, I'm looking at the screen, that's my bad. It has their little proprietary connector on it, which sucks, but they've moved on to XT60 on their largest power station, I believe, and maybe the E1000LFP, which I hope they send me that one too. That one sounds promising as well. If you've been around the channel for long enough, you know I'm a big accessories guy. This has been one of the coolest accessories that they ship with. It's basically an XT60 to battery clamp. That's dope for reasons I'll talk about later in the video. On the device, we have its AC charging port right here. I'm probably gonna pull that off. Maybe not, because I don't use AC a whole lot, so maybe I have no reason to pull that off. This is a cylindrical fuse. I think Ramblin' Bob made note of that. Interesting. Then we'll jump up to the solar. You can see that it has its proprietary 5-pin. The voltage is 32 to 95 volts. More on that later. And then we have a 5521, which is what you can use your standard 100 watt channel panel on it. Then we jump over here to the 12 volt connections. We have this XT60, really cool accessory that goes along with that. Barrel connector, which is 5525, and then you got your typical cigarette port kind of thing going on over here. You have two USB-Cs, but only one is 100 watts. The other one is 18, and then you have some USB-A, but they're all quick charge. Interesting thing about these is, as far as Jason noise testing, the 100 watt is impacted by this device or this port underneath it. So if you're going to use the 100 watt, just use these ports over here. Don't use this one and this one. It bumps this one down. Then you have the 3 AC outlets over here, 2200 watt inverter. Can surge up to 4400. I don't have much use for surge these days, but something could come up soon where I'll be curious about that, mainly my AC, to see if this could power my AC without issue, because a lot of power stations can't. And then on the side of the device, we have this expandable situation over here. They did not send me the battery, which is fine. In Hobotech's video, he talked about how the battery size of the expandable battery is a little bit strange because it doesn't fit perfectly. It's like longer and wider than this, and then the cables don't necessarily work per his video. I don't know if they've improved the cables. The cables don't necessarily work well at certain angles. Check his video out for more details on that. And there is your wireless charging pad, which is probably rated at about 15 watts. This device is fairly simple as it relates to buttons to turn things on and off. It does not have an on and off button. You just have DC and AC. The two buttons, you press and hold them to do something with the Wi-Fi situation. The screen is nice and visible. I think there's a setting in the app, I'll confirm that around here somewhere, where you could tell the screen to stay on and not turn off. You can see it shows the percentage, it shows the hertz. They cycle through a couple things as time remaining and AC out. One thing I have to look into is I think this one is going to be the same, where the DC in is going to be linked to DC in and out. You can see it has this negative sign right here. I'm going to update that once I start charging this from solar during the solar testing part, or just the charging part. We'll get into that a little bit. It's a fairly typical Pecron design, the square. Some people have an issue with it. I don't. I think it's fine. It's a freaking power box. I know you have some more stylish power stations with rounded edges and all that jazz. I don't really care. I like the fact that it has these little corner protectors, because every now and then you bump into stuff when you're carrying something like this. It has some handles on the side, which are pretty nice. They're very comfortable. There's not a whole lot to it. I do like, this is not a design aspect, but I do like that right here they give you some pertinent details like how to turn the device on, how to turn it off, things like that. Press and hold to reset the, it's just nice to know that that's right here. Now let's talk about charging this device because it is pretty interesting. You can charge it from the wall. There's no more charging powering brick, which is nice. Am I torn on that? I guess if I had one power station, I wouldn't care whether or not it had a charging brick or not. But when you get into having multiple power stations or a couple, it's nice to have one cable that could charge them all. And it's also nice for people who get out and move and shake. I don't really do that, but to not have an extra charging brick you need to carry with you just to charge a device, that's dope as well. Doesn't impact me as much, but you might be mindful of that. Now, the solar is interesting and cool, and it has a couple quirks at the same time. It can charge at up to 700 watts on this special 5-pin aviator, whatever it is, kind of plug. It has a number, but the number is not relevant. So you're gonna need to have that particular cable to charge with solar. I did hear, I think in Jason Noy's video, even though the power station has a voltage range on that special high power port of 32 volts to 90 volts, he was saying that a 12 volt panel, which typically means about 21, 22, can charge the device. So that's interesting, something to keep in mind. I'm not sure if that has warranty implications, but the range on it says 32 to 90 or 95 or whatever it is. The reason I say whatever it is interesting. We'll get to that in a second. They give you that range, but the range seems to be a little bit wider on the lower end. So that's cool. Now you have the 5521 port, which is nice if you had a 100 watt panel that you were carrying around, that you just wanted to be able to throw a simple amount of solar into it. I don't know that I wish it was higher. I mean, I do wish the input was higher. I wish it could do a 200 watt panel, especially with the limitation of the supposed limitation of the higher voltage port, which has to take 32 volts. It would be nice to be able to get a single 200 watt panel and be able to charge on that 5521 port. The reason why I like the 5521 port is because me personally, I like to be able to power dump into my power stations to extend the runtime. Now, a lot of people are consumed with faster charging, which I respect, but I don't have a high wattage load that I typically have on these power stations, even when they're running my house, especially overnight, which is typically when power seems to run out. To be able to use a 5521 male-to-male cable to take from another power station and charge this one and give it 100 watts, that's fantastic to me. It also gives me versatility that I don't have to use these 12 volt socket adapters, which I low-key hate, and I feel like you hate them too, don't you? They kind of suck. They work, but they suck. So I like that it's really versatile to get power back into it. You can use AC, or you could use 12 volt through the 5521 cable. And if I'm being really whatever, all encompassing, they have their own Pecron device. Let me show you. They have their own like DC fast charging device that has MC4 connectors on the top that can charge into your special high voltage port and give you more power. And it just connects right to MC4. You pop it onto a battery. The battery gives it more power. That's a whole nother thing. Now it can charge from the wall really fast. They say 1.8 hours. One of the channels that I watched said he got it to charge in about 1.5 or something like that. So if it charges faster, yay, I suppose. So it charges at a max of 1400 watts. I think it can do that from AC. Will it get that close? Maybe, maybe not. It really depends on how much power you're putting into the battery. But then you can dual charge from AC and solar, and then solar is going to take priority. I did forget to mention that you can charge from both solar inputs at the same time. That's why they say you can get 800 watts of solar. So you can get 700 plus 100 on the solar inputs. Pretty cool. The respective amps on the solar is 7 amps on the 100 watt port. It maxes out at that. And then it's 15 amps on the high voltage port. About charging from high voltage panels, I have a couple 300 watt panels that are at about 37 volts. 37 plus 37 is whatever that is. I don't feel like thinking in the moment, but I think the high end range of the voltage spectrum on this power station, you start to have issues. Hobotech in his testing, he was saying that when he went above maybe about 80 volts, it started to act kind of strange. And I think that I've seen that personally with these panels, but I can't remember under what circumstances. But most 400 watt panels are about 40 volts, 38 volts, 39 volts, and about 10 amps. So you should be fine. But as you approach that height, Don't be shocked if the input starts to get lower or starts to act weird or something like that. I've seen it happen. As it's sitting next to me right now, I am hearing some interesting sounds coming from the device because the AC and the DC on. I'm sure those sounds are related to the AC, but I just wanted to let you know. It's nothing crazy, it's not loud. I just hear a little bit of clicking, maybe a slight little fan whirl. I'm not sure if I could capture it on camera. I will try. I'll put that footage right here. Now, I do want to see how much fan noise you get from charging the device, and I also want to see how much fan noise you get from discharging the device, so I'm going to put that here. Right now, I'm charging a power station that I think has one of the higher draws that I've seen. You can see right now it's getting up to 11, 13, 15, 1600. I'm wearing a microphone, so let me take the microphone off and then record some sound from this camera. All right, this is sound from the camera itself, which is when I swing it around here. That's what I get. And then this is the other side. Not a whole lot of fan noise. Okay, it's been a good few minutes. I'm still using the device's audio and not my external microphone, but you can see it's using 1700 watts, 87%, and the fan has gotten no louder, which is actually pretty dope. Discharging the device is interesting. It does have a UPS feature, but the UPS feature is maxed out at 1800 watts. That's not a but. I don't know why I said that, because your wall can only produce about that much anyway. I don't particularly care for or use UPS. It's a problem for me because I like to power dump. So if I'm taking inferior power station and power dumping from it using AC, let's say that device has a 1600 watt inverter, I don't know what'll happen when it's trying to pull 1800 watts. So it seems like some devices treat it different ways. I don't know how this one does. Maybe I'll try it. If I tried it, I'll put it here. If not, I'll put a video in the description, or I'll put a comment in the description letting you know how that worked out. Now, it has a 2200 watt inverter, which I'm pretty excited about for me personally. We typically like 1800 watt inverters because that's typically what we get from the wall. Unless you have a 20 amp joint, then you could get a little more. But the reason why that's important is because you have the confidence that you could run any device that you could run from your wall from a power station like this, and you have a little bit of overhead to be able to power some extra stuff. Think about that in terms of power outage situations. Sure, you want to be able to use, let's say, your microwave. Your microwave uses 1400 watts. That gives you a lot more cushion to be able to do other stuff, so you don't have to constantly be unplugging and not using and so on and so forth. So I like the 2200 watt inverter. And also for me, I like to run my house from these power stations using the method that is described up here. I'm not ready to make a video about using these cables publicly, but I may get to that space. But if you want to watch that video and you happen to be watching this, you can see my journey to power my house using these special cables that a lot of people like to complain about. It supports being charged and discharged at the same time. I'm not sure why that's even a thing that we're still mentioning. I mean, in 2025, I feel like that's something we kind of stopped talking about in like 2023, 2022. This is me testing out what the screen does when it has power coming in and then there's power coming out. So I'm gonna turn this on. I'm gonna have it hooked up to a 100 watt load. And I wanna know what this thing is gonna do. You can see it dropping down now. So will it go into the negative? Yes, it does. Now the thing that I'm most excited about is this XT60 20 amp joint. And I wanna be able to use that in this video to try to charge a battery, which I have running back here. Let me go turn it off, I'll be right back. So I'm actually just gonna try this right now. I'm gonna clamp this on. You can see I have these connected, and then we're gonna come down here to look at the screen, and then I'm gonna turn this on. Now, one problem I have is this battery was at 94%. So we got 1433 watts going in. That's interesting. So it's not a whole lot. And you come over to the screen here. You can see that this is a reason why I wanted to use this battery, because it has a screen that shows you it's charging at 30 watts, which is kind of whack. I don't know what dictates how much power a port like this sends out. It's rated up to 20 amps. I don't understand this enough to be able to speak to why this is not giving this more power, other than the fact that the battery's kind of full. And I can't think of another way to drain this battery. I'm gonna think about that for a second. Okay, I pulled some power out of this battery. It's at 86%. I was actually just charging this with it. We're gonna turn it on and then let's see if we get more than 30 watts. So you can see this is still only giving the battery 30 watts. So I don't know how you're supposed to get 20 amps from this XT60. So some other thoughts. It is expandable up to about 7 kilowatts, like 7.5 or 7.6 kilowatt hours via a few batteries. Their batteries are about 3 kilowatts altogether, so I guess you can connect probably 2 extra batteries in there. And the batteries are really decently priced. Everything about Pecron stuff is decently priced. They are really doing extremely well, especially considering where they came from. They're probably one of my favorite budget brands as it relates to how much you get for how much you spend. It's freaking crazy. That's why I was so excited about getting more of their devices than the one that I had, which is the E1500, the E600 LFP. Which is a beast of a machine in its own right. So something like this, they've done really well. It does have app control as well. I need to talk about that. The app is interesting. It's pretty like straightforward. I don't like that you have to register an email to use the app. I wish we really got away from that in the industry. It sucks. People don't want to give up their email address. I'm a privacy-minded kind of person. I have specific emails for my solar stuff because I'm a YouTuber, but not everybody wants to sign up for a new account. You do what you got to do, but not everybody wants to, just to be able to use their device. Unlike some other budget-friendly power stations, I really like that this one is sitting at about 120 volts instead of 110. I don't have many power stations that could do 120 volts. That's another reason why this one is a welcome addition into my whole situation, where I can power stuff, use 120 volts, and don't have to be worried about compromised performance because the voltage is a little lower, which is a real thing. And although this thing weighs about 40 pounds on paper, it does not feel heavy. This is why I really like this mid-range plus kind of designation, because a lot of the mid-range devices are about 1,000 watt hours, whereas this one is 1,500 plus watt hours. And I think that's a really good compromise. With a 2,200 watt inverter and a 1,500 watt hour battery, I think you can do really well with this in terms of being able to move it around the house. It's not super heavy, but it is super capable. It just won't last as long. Speaking of that, the watt hour capacity test that a bunch of channels did on this, it did pretty good. It did about its typical 85% of capacity. Reway actually did like a close to a 1C rate test on the AC inverter, and he got really good results from that. I think it was like approaching like 90% of the battery capacity you could get. So you're looking at about 1,400. I'm not going to do the math. I have it written down. Let me look at those notes. The watt hour capacity testing was like really good on the DC and just good on the AC. AC got you about 1,200 watt hours, and then DC got you close to the amount. It's like 1,400 watt hours of DC power, which is pretty cool. And I suspect, I don't have any suspicions, I just think it's nice. On the Wi-Fi connectivity, somebody pointed out that it's only Wi-Fi, which typically a lot of devices you can use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So if your Wi-Fi is down, you won't be able to connect to your device even if you're standing like within a few feet of it. That's pretty interesting. I don't know that it matters to me. I'm also excited about having a device that has Wi-Fi connectivity. That's another thing that's kind of pretty high on my list. I've been making it work with these other devices that don't, or devices that have Wi-Fi connectivity, but the Wi-Fi connectivity turns off after a certain point. Now, I don't know if this one does that. No. When it turns on, the Wi-Fi connectivity turns back on as long as you have set it up, which is cool. Some of the other power stations don't. And if this Pecron is anything like the one that I have, you have no issues with it being plugged into solar overnight. When the solar comes back up overnight, if it's off, if it's dead, it's gonna turn back on and it's gonna start charging again. And you don't get any weird clicks or anything like that. So it's a really strong offering from Pecron. I'm really looking forward to hopefully being able to do more videos on their devices. Hopefully you guys are pleased with what I've talked about in this video to the point where you would feel comfortable with buying it. Which brings me to the support and warranty situation. I didn't see anything in their manual about warranty. I'll put some stuff down here or in the comments description section about their warranty. They do have an email listed in their manual that you could reach out to them and get information about support and things like that. I think it's just support at Pecron. Let me look. Yep, support at Pecron.com. Pecron has done a really good job on these power stations as of late. I think they're innovating. They're putting features in these devices that are important to the consumers. I mean, look at that E1500LFP. That's a freaking heated power station. I don't think there's any other heated power station on the market right now. They also they're moving towards XT60 connectivity on the solar charging. I think they even have some redesigned devices out there. They give you so much bang for your buck when you're buying into this system. I mean, it's almost like, man, how could you not go with a Pecron sometimes? I just look at the pricing and look at the features a lot of times, and I'm just like, man, that is such a good freaking deal. And they've been doing that for a while. Wi-Fi connectivity, wireless charging, 90 volts of solar. I mean, it's really nice. I'm not into like getting into a space where I'm trying to get you guys to buy devices. My whole thing is I love solar, I love power stations, I love using them around the house for preparedness purposes, but more so just for saving money on my bill. They pennies, but they my pennies. Right now I'm at a point where they're dollars, but they're my dollars. So I'm gonna enjoy using this device. Look forward to a video of me trying to power my house from this device, at least one side of my panel. That'll be coming up pretty soon. I'll probably share it to the Patreon folks when it's actually done. And then, other folks will get it a little later because I'm trying to do videos in order. I am rambling. I'm gonna stop. It is Something that's a nice touch about this cable is that the red joint is longer than the black joint, which kind of perfectly helps you to be able to connect it to a battery.